Would you ever wonder if the moon went away? Did you ever have those thoughts?
I've never.
I don't know if I've like thought about it intentionally. I feel like, you know, in those what ifs, you're like, wow, what would the world be like? And I feel like maybe I've thought it, but also probably not. But just
we kind of thought about it when we did Melancholia, and it wasn't so much that the moon was gone. It was just like if a moon-sized thing came.
Earth go.
Yeah, and it was like, oh, we are just one space mishap away from annihilation. Like, nature doing what nature does.
Yeah.
Away from annihilation, always, forever.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's like how we were at the end of Girl with the Gifts. It's like, it's just the end for you, you know?
Sure.
So people might go away. Other things might happen. What if the oceans take over? Ocean animals are like pretty smart. They probably are already down there doing civilization in some way. Hopefully better than us.
There's so much down there we don't even know.
There's the long dangly squid guy.
Yeah, he's subsistent down there.
He's doing stuff.
As long as they're in the ocean, they're good.
They don't even have gender, probably. Like, fuck it.
Yeah, little squid tentacle
person thing. Yeah, doing it, living their best life. So if the moon was gone, what I learned, and as I always say when we cover sciencey things, I am not a scientist. I am very far from a scientist. So like, I researched this with my non-scientist brain, and take that with as you will. I did get a degree in anthropology. That's slightly different though. It's like a kind of science. Yeah, it's the science of humans, because I'm like, what are those? And that's how I tried to learn about them. Except academia is super flawed because it's hella racist. Moral of the story is, if our moon was to go away, we would be royally effed. Like super bad time, for like a lot of reasons. And like, it's already royally effed because of climate change, but like, there's things we can do at that point. You know what I mean? Like, there are things we can do to slow down climate change and like not actively harm the planet. We can't really control if the moon explodes unless like we're the ones who did it. Then yeah, like that's an us thing. But
yeah, they definitely did it.
One is like, we have some semblance of saving it, and then if the moon just goes explode now, there's so many ways in which it could impact us that are all very unpredictable. Because it just depends on what kind of perfect storm takes place afterwards. There's like things we know will happen because science, but like how they'll happen exactly all really depends. So essentially, the worlds that NK created center around like this idea of this moon being gone. And that's why we're talking about it. But also like the way it impacted human evolution. I looked up a bunch of times in a bunch of different ways what would happen to people if the moon was gone, like evolution wise. And I didn't get much of an answer there. It's more that if the moon never existed, people probably wouldn't evolve to be people. Like we probably wouldn't exist.
So we needed that.
Yeah, we needed the moon. And like most evolution in terms of mammals need the moon. So like if the moon never was, we might not be here. We almost 100% won't be here. But
also, I think the origins came from like the Earth doing something.
Yeah, I don't think like the evolution was from the moon situation. It was more like the Earth was like, you guys doing it. The seasons does happen because of the moon, though. So I'll get into that.
Heck yeah.
So what would happen if the moon was gone? A helpful article on Forbes titled 7 Ways Earth Would Change If Our Moon Was Destroyed by Ethan Siegel.
That's helpful.
Yeah, really helpful. And starts with a bang. Details what this would look like, what it would mean. So the destruction of the moon would result in potential debris, obviously flying very quickly towards the Earth, but like not like super quick. Like not as quick as an asteroid. So that's like the bonus. That's like the thumbs up part.
It could be worse.
Yeah. So This may or may not be life exterminating. This really depends on how the moon was destroyed. Was it like a big explosion that totally eliminates it entirely as if it never existed in the first place? Okay, like we're not going to have like giant rocks flying at us then, or like giant amounts of dust absorbing into our atmosphere and quickly heating the planet until it's inhabitable. But like if it doesn't happen that way, if it dissolves into chunks, etc., it's like there's lots of ways that this could go down, and that would really impact how like the immediate after would go. So it really would depend on the magnitude of the impact, and if we completely destroy it, break it into a few pieces, or break it down into a bunch of little pieces that kind of break off into debris. So each version of this would have a significantly to slightly different result. Like ultimately the tides and all that other seasons and Earth's axle tilts and stuff like that, that would all happen no matter what happens. It's just kind of like, do we get hit with giant rock or not? So if the moon split into smaller pieces, they would likely reform into one or more smaller moons. I also read somewhere that like if you kind of destroy them but they don't move, that they could over like a lot of time just reform back into the original moon. It would just like take a minute. But essentially they could reform. Yeah, you know, like a long we did not see the minute end, and neither would many of us and our children's 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 children. But like eventually it could happen.
I will say that it's probably like a factual like explanation of how long it would take, considering the small amount of time we've been here.
It's been a minute.
Like the existence of it would
humanity
be
is a little blip.
Yeah.
So it's gone. And then the Earth is like, wow, they did a bunch of damage. Never going to do that again. Keep them. Don't let them do technology. That was the mistake.
We learned.
Yeah. Or like just, it's time. But yeah, so essentially it would not destroy the planet no matter what, like entirely. It would probably just really impact us and like mammals and land-based animals,
water creatures.
Yeah, water creatures too. But like,
I mean, we're water creatures.
Yeah. Things that are influenced by tides. So it wouldn't be as destructive as an asteroid or a comet that we fear, because these fragments have less energy upon impact. So if it's a bunch of little pieces, like they would not really. It would be bad, but it wouldn't be as bad as like asteroid or comet or like what destroyed the dinosaurs happening. The speed impact would be minimal comparatively, and make it less deadly because of the less energy. And that's because asteroids or comets striking Earth move at 20, 50, or even over 100 kilometers per second. But lunar debris would be moving at a mere 8 kilometers and would strike only a glancing blow with our atmosphere. So
it's closer.
Yeah, it has a lot less time to travel, so it's slower.
Look at me be smart.
Yeah, you get math. So damage would still happen, like don't get me wrong, and many life forms, including humans, would likely die, like even just like from the impacts. And that's like the least bad part of it. But it would likely not drive an entire humanity extinction level event unless like a very specific amount of factors happen. And it's honestly like, at least not right away. Like you kind of want to go in the beginning because the after is what's like bad. So the impact would be less than 1% of the total energy of a comparably sized asteroid. For this reason, we would likely survive the impacts. And if they were small enough, these little chunks would be kind of like chilling in our atmosphere. The real problem would come if you survive any of these initial impacts, that the change to the planet could either be really gradual or super fast. It really just depends on the exact circumstances. The debris from the moon likely won't result in problems right away, but it can range from destroying any and all satellites in our orbit to collecting in our atmosphere and forming like a Saturn-like ring, gradually releasing debris to burn up before it reaches the planet's surface. The ring would also likely, as I said, destroy satellites, but leave the planet unscathed. If satellites were destroyed, there would be impacts that would affect the ability to send signals into space, which would make it so likely our internet, cell phone, general globalization vibe would be impacted by that. And there have been many books and movies positioned around the destruction of the internet and global connections. So I think it's like reasonable to assume the fallout of that would be like a bad time, like negative for a lot of people. There's also another possibility, which would involve like the tiny pieces dissolving into the Earth's atmosphere and further heating the planet more rapidly than it's already doing. Which could potentially lead to inhabitable levels of heat over a long period of time. Specifically, I don't think that the moon would produce enough debris to heat the planet at which like all the oceans would evaporate, but it could heat it enough to at the very least melt what's left of the Arctic, forging any kind of foregoing any axial tilts that push us into an ice age. And the results would be water levels rising and land decreasing exponentially. The biggest impact, though, is less about the actual impact of the moon's debris and more about like what happens to our axial tilt, specifically our placement and how we rotate on an axis. Earth spins on an axis tilted at 23.4 degrees with respect to our orbital plane around the sun. This is known as our obliquity. You might not think that the moon has much to do with that, but over tens of thousands of years, that tilt changes from as little as 22.1 degrees to as much as 24.5 degrees. The moon is a stabilizing force, as worlds without big moons like Mars see their axial tilt change by 10 times as much over time. On Earth without a moon, it's estimated that our tilt would possibly even exceed 45 degrees at times, making it a world that's spun on our sides. Poles wouldn't always be cold. The equator might not always be warm. Without our moon to stabilize us, ice ages would preferentially hit different parts of our world every few thousand years. So that we would have seasons.
Imagine how dizzy you would be, you know?
Yeah. I'm good. But the seasons that NK propositions as a possibility would likely exist in that there would be times where parts of the planet did not have access to the sun. There would be times where parts of the planet experiences exponential cold. There would be times where destabilizing events happen that like really just mess with adaptivity of life. So humans in many ways would need to learn to return to like nomadic ways of life in order to survive. We'd find failure in structured locations and the kind of like inability to change. So like society would need to go. Like countries, no. It's like open borders or everyone's going to die. And I think like that's going to be our downfall more than anything else is that people's inability to change will lead to our ability to like survive these events even worse.
And people are so much more nomadic and like fluid in the trilogy, like because they're just expecting like, oh, life is going to change, so I got to move.
And like ideally the fall of the internet and other things would destabilize society enough that like we could just kind of vibe. So the destabilization of the Earth would lead to other impacts that drastically affect weather, plant life, and overall biodiversity, as well as the evolution of humanity and other animals. There would likely be creatures that evolve past us, humanity as we are now, that would either place us in a position of prey or drive extinction-like events like genocide. Whether that's a break-off from our current Homo sapiens or another species entirely, thinking aquatic life where dolphins, octopi, or other creatures that develop higher adaptivity to the changing planet can exist like on the ocean floor or like maybe they come up on the Earth now. Like that's literally what evolution is. Like I'm pretty sure crocodiles were whales once. Like, you know what I mean? Like kind of they just came out of the ocean. We were once fish. So that can happen. It's just likely it's going to take a minute. So it's possible also maybe that humans or creatures like that exist could develop powers similar to NK's book in that like the origins or stone eaters could develop to meet evolutionary needs to survive this ever-changing planet, and that eventually stills or humans without these powers would not have the adaptive requirements to survive the many seasons of planetary change. What is difficult about thinking through this is that the changing of the planet would be so unexpected in its shifts, it would be really hard to adapt to because you never really would know what the season would entail.
Right.
Yeah, like you don't know if it's going to be an ice season or a teeth season or a fire season or a madness season. You know what I mean? Like you don't know how it's going to go down. So it's really hard to prepare for something when you really have no idea. And like,
we don't name them till after. So
exactly. The survivors named the seasons. So the middle space is just chaos. So what else would happen if the moon was destroyed? Some lighter results would be that the night sky would be brighter, and that'd be pretty. Unobstructed by the moon, our vision of space would be clearer. The new sky would be extremely beautiful. With this, there would be no more eclipses. The length of our standard days would also either remain constant or potentially decrease. The moon impacting the speed of the Earth's rotation, slightly slowing it over time is where we have our leap years and our 24-hour day cycles. When the dinosaurs are around, it was 22-hour days. So it's changed over time. So this has impacted the time of our days by slight increments over centuries. Without a moon, we would either be constant 24-hour days until the sun dies, or we would decrease in hours of days. So like if the Earth's rotation slowed down or sped up, we'd have different results. So essentially, if the rotation of the Earth sped up, wind and other weather events could likely increase. This would make it very hard for birds and bugs specifically to survive, which would likely make it very difficult also to fly planes. We would see a significant decrease in pollination by animals. So we'd probably see a lot more just like wind-based, or we'd have crops die like crazy.
We'd have crazy like tumbleweeds,
and
also
they would spread like nothing. Like we'd have fire because all the time because the tumbleweeds are just invading.
That's the fire season for you.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And you'd fly right up. I'm kidding.
Yeah. Another thing that would be really impacted by the moon, which seems the most obvious, and I haven't mentioned it, is tides. They would be really impacted by this, specifically impacting like land mammals, but also aquatic life. It would dramatically impact the biodiversity on coasts. And specifically an article on Royal Museum's Greenwich titled, "What Would Happen If the Moon Disappeared?" They elaborate on the climate impact that would happen if it happened with the no moon now. So while I can't speak either, we're having time. While tides would not cease to exist, they would shrink, forming more constant mini tides that are still influenced by the sun, but they would be unchanging and significantly smaller than our current tides. Tide pools currently hold some of the ocean's richest biodiversity, so the decrease in tides would impact this, and as a result could decrease in the biodiversity of the ocean overall, as well as like coastal ecosystems. Animals that depend on these tides, like crabs, mussels, starfish, and snails, would likely go extinct. And the result of this would not only impact sea life, but also impact the land animals who rely on coastal ecosystems for a food source. Specifically people who rely on like ocean animals to live. That's the thing too. But also like coastal animals would likely go extinct. As ocean currents are often driven by tides that distribute warmer water around the globe, the impact on global climate becomes more obvious. Without these currents, temperatures could potentially grow more extreme. As I said, having periods of ice ages, either cooling or kind of just like not as obvious distribution of the poles, etc., which would lead to a lot of like biological chaos. In terms of additional effects this would have on animal life, it would likely spur a rise in prey, specifically, and a decrease in predators. The lack of a moon would impact many predators who use the moon's light and the advantage of the night's darkness to hunt. Prey would fare better because predators could no longer use the light of the moon to help them hunt. And this wouldn't impact all predators. Ones that have decent night vision or echolocation would likely do okay. But from an evolutionary standpoint, it likely changed the way in which eyes develop as well and evolve in wildlife as well. So we'd likely see more animals if we survive at all. People that could do things like have different ways of vision, including like heat sensors and kind of like maybe they don't see color, maybe they see thermal, echolocation, etc. We'd probably have like increases in our other senses as well. Or if the predators are not able to evolve at that level, they'd likely die off, especially if they're already at lower numbers from the impact of human intervention. And yeah,
so we'd have like real like predators, like the predator, because they were thermal. They see thermal.
Yeah.
That's why he had to put himself in all the mud. You know?
Yeah, I think the thing that would get them is that we've already destroyed the ecosystems and lives of current predator animals. Like for the most part, like we don't really have large predators anymore, except for really in the ocean. And even there, there's been a lot of damage done. So land predators would probably go extinct for a while. Just because they're not currently at the population levels where they could also survive this like planetary devastation.
So then just be like an overpopulation of
prey. Yeah.
Prey.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, we probably also see a very big rise in like deep ocean animals, like developing new stuff. Maybe they come up here. I don't know.
Well, we ain't seeing nothing.
Dangly squid doing the dances at the bottom of the ocean comes up and says hello. We don't know. I'm not going to be here. I know that much. I need an inhaler to breathe regular air. Fill that with debris. I'm done. Like,
you block out the sun, I'm going to be real.
You change the weather even slightly. My body's like, reject.
The pollen be weird now, like, because in the city, they plant primarily male trees. Yeah. So like they're just like pollen has been so bad the last few years. Like my allergies are insane. So I don't want to live in a place that doesn't have a moon. Also, the moon is like really pretty.
And if the wind's more, the pollen goes more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like more all up in your house and in your nose.
Tumbleweeds take over like fire. We could write like NK. We know that's the fire season.
Tumbleweeds would be an entire problem.
They are already an entire.
I know, but like more wind would just make it everywhere. They'd cross oceans, maybe. I don't know. Maybe they fly. Maybe they develop sentience, and that is the real enemy now. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen because it's chaos.
It is. It's
like all scenarios were like, this might happen. And if you live, this is the awful. And I was like, okay. And then like, if you live, like all the things that happen are very unpredictable. Like we know they will happen, but we don't know like how or when or how often. It's easier to die. Yeah. You're just like, it's make it easy for everybody, including myself, and just go when the moon goes.
It's so like impressive, like the characters in the trilogy, like just everyone is like, yep, here's the season. A bunch of us are going to die off. Like they're just like prepared for that. They're like, yeah.
Well, it's everyone's in lizard brain.
So a long time. So
it's a constant who gets on the boat. For the next one. And throw everyone else out into the wilderness to die. And then you're like, wow, okay. We actually did need those people. So
it's always like, which use casts are we going to keep? You know, the strong bodies or the storytellers, not them.
The leaders who just like run away and do stuff.
No leaders, no Loris.
Filled with privilege.
So good. What a great just a great series. I am really excited to finish it, and it has made me want to continue doing Writers Forever. We're not going to do that. We are in a way.
It does make us want to, though. Like it's like, why ever watch a movie again? It's just not gonna.
You can make the world look right in here.
Yeah, you can do it in your brain.
And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Thank you for
Straight up
sharing this.
bonkers.
The horrors of losing our moon.
I thought there was going to even be more. I was like really looking. I mean, there's a bunch, but I just mean like, I was expecting to Google what kind of cool way human evolved later, and that it was going to be crazy. And it was like,
it was like, you aren't going to
we're going to become giant golden retrievers who don't know how to think critically. And I was like, yeah, probably.
We're colorblind.
Our brains get smaller.
We only eat grass.
Yeah.
So much. Yeah. That's fine.
We can be like raccoons and like eat garbage and survive forever. I don't know if they live very long actually, but like, you know what I mean? Like your stomach can just eat stuff. Or we'll be like koalas and eat leaves that we can't digest until we die.
Sounds like it. Sounds like us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's koalas. It's like koalas or something else. But yeah, they eat leaves and they can't digest them. So, and it doesn't give them any nutrients. So they just eat them obsessively until they die. And it's horrifying. But that's going to be humans now.
Yeah.
Maybe, if we live.
Or it would just be like pandas where we look like predators. Like we got the canines and everything. But then we just eat bamboo. Yeah, we wouldn't, because none of us have working, or a lot of us don't have our appendix anymore. Can't be.
Oh, I still got mine. I think, unless I never had one in the first place. My body's weird. I don't have wisdom teeth. They just never existed. They didn't get removed. They just never were there. So I imagine no one's done a scan. They're missing organs.
I think they're all the ones I need are there. I have at least one kidney.
Yeah. It does kind of its job. I don't know. Yeah.
Who knows what's going on in here? Not me.
Yeah, I don't know.
NK knows a lot. She knows a lot of things. So trust her as a source. What a great epic. Amazing storytelling, both on like the scientific part, but then also calm down, the emotional part.
It's really funny, the thing you said and that I said.
Yeah, it's also just like so sad. Like it is so sad, and it never stops being sad. Like I haven't stopped being sad.
Yeah, I mean, based on what happens later, it doesn't sound like it gets like better. It's like cool. And happier. It's cool, yeah. And I feel like there's some hope in there, like in some way, like because people are going to keep people in, even if it's a bad time. But yeah, it's stressful.
I never related so much to a character when like there's like a theater where Alabaster's like, "Can you do this?" and like explains this thing, and Ethan's like, "What?"
Yeah, like what did you say? And then there's annoyed, and then
it's just like, that's me. Oh my god, that's exactly how I feel. And then there was a Stone Eater.
What is that?
Oh my god, a Stone Eater? What is that?
I assume they eat stones. That's the context clues, but other than that, I don't know.
Why are they contributing to my nightmares and my depression? Anyway,
I mean, it'd be dope to not have to like be on the up. You could just go on the down and like explore down there. Like, because they can travel through the earth. Yeah. So you don't have to be on the top part. You can just do wherever you want. Do whatever you want.
Just gotta understand that
you're cold, go to the earth core.
The earth is always shifting under there.
Yeah. It's like go down to the earth core, find Godzilla. Like that's what you could do.
Yeah. Go to the bottom of the ocean, awaken Cthulhu. What are we doing?
Yeah. You could do that if you want.
Awaken Cthulhu and Godzilla. Let them fight. Now we have entertainment. No one has TV anymore.
Yeah. I do want to know what the obelisks do. I'm not there yet, and I'm excited to figure out what that's all about.
I don't know. It's just big question marks every time. Mm-hmm. You look like that meme, like with a math, like what is that? But like fun, like a fun.
Yeah, but like happy. You're
learning
like
is fun.
It's not math. It's like science.
It's like
history.
Fantasy. It's like made up words.
Societal critiques. Yeah, all of it. 10 out of
Anyway,
10. We did it.
It is written. We are starting on a new writer next week. We're going to be talking about Sylvia Moreno Garcia, so stay tuned for that. I have so much to say. I could pick any number of books. We're going to talk about certain dark things for her. But I'll tell you, one of my favorite writers ever. So Sylvia, be my friend, and Kate, be my friend. And like and subscribe as you do. Let us know how you feel about NK. What's your favorite book by her? And if we were to do another writer series next year,
who do you want us to talk about?
Who are we talking about? We already have some plans, but I want to hear from you as well. And drop us a email, ghoulsnextdoor@gmail.com.
Do you want us to never watch movie again, only review book?
Do we become booktubers?
Is that what happens?
I don't think so.
I don't know
if I can sustain. I don't know if we can sustain it. It takes a long time.
It takes a long time.
It's like why
wow,
do
guys,
books take month when can do movie take hour half?
Exactly. But also what it shows now monthly because we read million book.
Read book. Since we read book take month. Yeah. Exactly.
Say less words, more things.
We're
more things said.
Say less word, more comprehend.
Exactly. 100%. Following that thought.
Well, don't get married.
We'll eat your kids.
I'm not going to say what happens to your kids in this book. Sorry. It's so sad.